Yes, it's F1 Friday Night Live. This is the show where we talk about the week's Formula One news. It's a bit more relaxed. We're fully interactive. We can have a good old chat through the chat window today and this week. Obviously, Ferrari, for all the wrong reasons, have been dominating the headlines with John Elkann's comments about the drivers, saying they need to focus on driving and shut up, and all the news that's followed that. Also, we talked about Toto Wolff selling shares, some of his shares, and who he's selling them to. We've also got the Christian Horner rumours, Alpine, and Elkann out is trending on X. Sorry, wow, and I've got some really funny X users who have commented, and I'm going to read some of those out because I was reading them before and they're absolutely hilarious. Like, you can always bank on fans as being super funny in these times. So yeah, we've got lots to get into. But yeah, if you haven't already, hit a like on the video, subscribe if you haven't. Do make sure you've hit the notification bell so you can stay up to date with all of our content. And if you feel like hyping it as well, that's great. But yeah, absolutely. It's going to be a fun one tonight. Let's have a look. See who's in the chat. Hey, Kyle. Hey, DT. Yes, D1 New Old School. Greetings from North London. Great to have you in the chat, my friend. By the way, just before we get into all the stories, F1 Friday Night Live is the one where we can like banter, okay? We're going to go through some of the stories that we've spoken about this week. You can have your opinions. We'll discuss them in the chat. So it's really great to see all of you, new people as well. D1, lovely to have you with us. And if you are watching and you've not got in the chat yet, I promise you, they're a really friendly bunch. Get in the chat, get interactive. That's what it's all about. So obviously we're going to start with the villain of this week. We're going to start with Mr. Elkann. Mr. Elkann. What a week. Gemma's there as well. Hey, Gemma. Yeah, you're always there, Gemma. So nice to have you in the chat, Gemma. Oh, I've not even had a drink. Yeah, Gemma, I'm glad you're there. And if you are watching, say hello to Gemma. She's very friendly. Yeah, so the villain of this week has, of course, been John Elkann. I'm going to quickly whiz through what he's been doing, because if you want to get the full story, we followed the story. There's loads of videos on the channel that you can watch on the Ferrari playlist or just on the recent news playlist, and you can get fully up to speed. But if you don't know, after the Sao Paulo Grand Prix, John Elkann was being interviewed. And John Elkann is obviously the chairman of Ferrari and the majority shareholder of all of Ferrari, the entire brand. Billionaire. Anyway, he basically said the engineers are doing a great job. The pit crew are fantastic. The only really problems are everything outside of that. And what our drivers need to do is focus and stop talking, which has caused an uproar and a backlash of people pushing back and going, what are you talking about? The engineers are the one that giving them a terrible car. The engineers are the one that built a car, and the designers built a car that could only operate at a certain ride height that couldn't be sustained through a Grand Prix. We all know this. Lift and coast is just laughable. The brakes don't work. And it is just, as we like to say, the Ferrari SF25 is a bag of spanners, right? An absolute bag of spanners. And you've got two brilliant drivers, Charles Leclerc, 7 podiums in a car that really shouldn't be getting 7 podiums. 7-time world champion Lewis Hamilton trying to improve things at the team. Basically saying, hey, there's a lot going wrong in this team. I've been in teams that have won world championships more recently than you have. Here's a dossier of what we need to do. All the engineers fall out, and it's just civil war at Ferrari. Okay, so that's the landscape. Like I said, you can watch the earlier videos to get a full, deeper analysis, but that's the landscape. Then the story moves on. Then we find out through news articles that immediately after Sao Paulo, Fred Vasseur was apparently, after every Grand Prix, Fred Vasseur gets on the phone to John Elkann and gives him a report. So then the news that sort of started coming out from Ferrari, and this came out from Top Speed, which is an Italian news outlet. So then we started thinking, are Ferrari starting to do, they saw all this pushback on John Elkann, and now they're dropping these seats to go, hang on a minute, it's not John's fault, it's Fred Vasseur's fault. He gave them a report, and then basically it looked like Ferrari were trying to change the narrative with the Italian journalist to say, oh, no, after the Grand Prix, Fred was on the phone to John saying, you know, giving him a report, and basically looked like Fred was throwing the drivers under the bus and John was just reacting to that. Anyway, then it moved on again because this story got wackier and wackier. So today, oh, look at this. We've had, we had from the Scuderia, they decided to take today, in all of this media storm of everyone is telling Ferrari, oh my God, John, you're so out of touch. You know, don't know anything about Formula One. You don't know what the problems are within your team. The drivers are the best things that you've got. The car is an absolute bag of spanners, and you're praising the engineers. They launched this. They've got Ferrari launched some new limited edition merch, right, on their socials today, and they also launch this, which was doubling down on John Elkann's comments about working as one, and it's pictures of the pit crew, you know, because the pit crew are basically the top of the DHL pit list of the most consistent pit stops throughout the season, 2.2 seconds, right? And John Elkann's really holding on to this unity because we've got the most consistent pit crew in Formula One, and it's just like, oh my God, it's like saying sort of getting the crappiest car you could imagine. I don't know. Let's say, I don't know, what's a really bad car? There aren't many bad cars these days. A terrible car to drive. Okay, let's say I can't win on this one. A Ferrari's a terrible car to drive. No, it's like, let's go. I'll tell you what's a terrible car to drive. An Austin Mini Metro, because I drove one of those and it was awful, right? It's like getting an Austin Mini Metro, but somebody has done the most amazing paint job on it, right? And they go, oh, it doesn't matter that the car's crap, because look at the colour of it. It's beautiful. Yet the car doesn't work, right? And that's what they're doing here. They're saying, don't look at the whole team, look at this. And the thing they're getting you to look at is the pit crew, because they've got consistent pit stop times. And even in the pictures, when they say working as one, if you look at the pictures, who's missing? No, the drivers, no Leclerc, no Hamilton, no Fred Vasseur. The only people in the working as one team are the pit crew members. Anyway, so they did this today, which was a real silly thing to do, because it has brought on some of the funniest responses from F1 fans, and I wanted to read some of these out. This it's so ill thought out, like that, because John Elkann, by the way, still hasn't given any response to any of it. There's absolutely no response from John Elkann, even though the entire world has pushed back. So this one I think's hilarious, because the reason was they wanted to say we've reached these special milestones. So Sam on Twitter, on X, says, is the special milestone reaching 6,229 days since you last won any titles? that was good. Special merch more than podiums. I'll keep buying the new merch. Will you fix the car? And every one of these has got Elkann out, which is also trending. Josh was hilarious. He put, cool story, bro. Now let's address the rotten core of a team that's supposed to be the pride of Italy. Enzo sold cars to go racing, but now the opposite is true. This team is being used as a marketing campaign for a brand that's slowly losing identity, chasing shareholder value. Elkann out. Like, Elkann out. That this movement is getting quite crazy. It's getting bigger and bigger. Now, John Elkann hasn't responded. So the problem is this story's not going anywhere. What they did today with this really awful sort of PR, which has only inflamed the situation, it's literally like pouring gasoline on the flame, has meant that I said Thursday earlier, but it's actually next Wednesday when it's media day for the Vegas Grand Prix. Leclerc and Hamilton are going to turn up, and all they're going to do is question Hamilton and Leclerc about, well, Elkann's comments. I mean, it's unbelievable. I'm going to get to chat and see what you've got to say. Yeah, Gemma says, yeah, press day. It's going to be Gemma says it's an absolute joke. They need PR damage control to pull this back before next Thursday. Yeah, I did say it was Thursday, actually, in my earlier video. It's not because of the time difference. It's going to be on Wednesday. Yeah. DT, Destroy Television, says, you can't paint a turd gold, but at the end of the day, it's still a turd. Exactly. It's like, don't look, it's like a magician saying, don't look at this. Don't look at the terrible car, but look at this. And the only thing they can really celebrate after slagging the drivers off, because you can't even start celebrating Leclerc's brilliant performance of 7 podiums. So the only thing they can put out is, look at our pit crew. Look at our pit crew, aren't they good? Solid 2.2 seconds. It's like, it's just not even a prize. Kyle says, DT, you can't paint a turd red. Well, apparently you can. It's called the SF25. Oh, that's the other thing. I missed out part of the story. One of the big stories this week in that story was, so the Ferrari engineers, because everyone was pushing back saying, the Ferrari engineers, you've been praising, John Elkann's praising them, saying they're a winning engineering team. Everyone said, no, they're not. And then, so the Ferrari engineers then pushed back again in the Italian press and said, hey, it's not our fault. Enrico Cardiel designed the car in 24, and that's the platform we're using. And then he buggered off to Aston Martin. He's joined Aston Martin now. He's a chief technical officer. And they said, because of that, because Cardiel left, we didn't know what to do. It's not our fault. It's his fault because he's left. He left us in the lurch. I mean, it's an absolute clown show. And all of these little bits of, I'm guessing that these are little bits of PR from Ferrari going out to the Italian press, where they think they can sort of double down on John Elkann's message, when actually all they're doing is inflaming the Ferrari, the Tifosi, and actually the neutral, the F1 fan. And I thought the Tifosi would feel differently, actually. I thought the Tifosi, because the Tifosi are very, obviously, Italian pride, and I get it. But even the Tifosi are saying, it's not the drivers. It's not Leclerc, it's not Hamilton. It is the car. Because everyone keeps saying Vettel. Right? And they say Alonso. It's been the same, since what? When did Raikkonen win? Was it 2007? I mean, it's crazy. It's a crazy situation. So even the Tifosi are like going, hang on, look, it's not the drivers, it's Ferrari, right? Team Ferrari. So everyone's pushing back, and now we've got Elkann out, like going through Twitter. We've got the funniest comments. If you just want to have a laugh, you need to go to the Scuderia Ferrari X and just read through some of the comments. I mean, there's nothing better. People become incredibly witty under these circumstances. Now, I don't know whether Ferrari think, if we just batten down the hatches, we just pretend it's not happening, don't get John Elkann to respond. And by the way, I'm pretty sure I'm off the Ferrari list. I'm definitely not getting a Christmas card off Ferrari this year. I don't think I'm going to get invited Team Ferrari anytime soon. But yeah, but I think that somebody needs to tell John that you need to speak before Wednesday and clear this up. Somebody do. Fred Vasseur's not said a word either. He's been so quiet. Yeah, I'm gonna go to the chat. Triplex says, I hope Charles and Lewis call in sick during the race weekend. I tell you what, with Charles and Lewis, I hope they say we've been told not to speak. So when people ask them questions on press day, they do a Kimi Raikkonen. They all suddenly become Kimi Raikkonen and go, yeah, no, and just stop talking. Because the thing about the drivers is they're always, they go through these extreme situations of driving the car in a Grand Prix. And then immediately after, they've got a camera and a microphone shoved in their face. And emotions and adrenaline, and it's all up there. And if you've ever had a bad Grand Prix and the engineers have made a mistake or the pit walls made a mistake, there's so many things that can go wrong. And just at that moment when you're getting out of the car, someone's got a camera and a microphone in your face. Now, I think both drivers actually have been pretty reserved with their comments. They've never really gone crazy. I mean, obviously on the team radio, something like when Leclerc in Baku, where they ran the car at a low ride height and he's super competitive in the fight, and then his final pit stop in the last third of the race, because they realise the car's going to be illegal again, like Lewis's was in China, they overinflate the rear tyres to give a higher ride height, and then the car handles like a complete bag of spanners. All the ground effect, as in the aero which sucks the car to the ground, isn't working. And Leclerc's on the team radio going, "What have you done? I could have managed this. I know what you're basically saying without saying it exactly. I know what you've done. I could have handled it. Why didn't you just tell me? Now the car is undrivable. We're going to lose a podium." And it's so we've seen Leclerc. I actually think Leclerc has had more outbursts than Hamilton. Hamilton, what he's been getting accused of, when you look at their Twitter feed, and that's why everyone's supporting Hamilton, is he did an internal document which basically called out the team for their things that they need to improve on, from communication, from upgrades, from the speed that they work, from operations at race weekend. Like, he literally went, "Listen, as a new person with a new set of eyes coming into this team, and as a driver knowing what I need from the car, but also from coming from a championship winning team, knowing what the team needs to do to get to that standard." He's put his, this is a phrase we use in the UK sometimes, he put his cock on the chopping block. He basically was prepared to go, "I know these people aren't going to like me, but I'm here to win, and I'm not going to do what Vettel did and sort of be Team Ferrari and not say anything." Even Fernando Alonso, who is outspoken, even he succumbed to the brand Ferrari-ness. Even he didn't speak out like he has done at other teams, and they just couldn't get the team to operate in the way that they needed. And Hamilton went, "Okay, I'm coming in, and the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to audit this team, and I'm going to put my suggestions in." He knows he's not going to be popular, but he did all that internally. Listen, I have tried with everyone I know to try and get a copy of that document. Anyone I know in the grid, Tubby George especially, no one has managed to get me a copy of that. I would love to see what was written down. I've been told an idea of what was in it. And of course, it's not flattering, but how do you flatter a team that's not won for 20 years? And you're at the end of your career going, "This is my shot. I want to win one more, and I want to do it with Ferrari. I've not got time to do what Leclerc's done." How long's Leclerc been there? 7 years. He's given his best. He's given his best years to a team that haven't delivered for him. Because I don't think anybody can disagree and say that Charles Leclerc isn't a top 3 driver. Give him a good car, he's going to give Max a run for his money. And give him a better car than Max has got, then of course he can win a world championship. Of course he can. What he's done in that Ferrari this year is remarkable. His qualifying has been amazing. I mean, look at the last 3 races. He's turned up, hasn't he? Like he has done all season. And so they've got this jewel there in Leclerc. Leclerc would not be short of other opportunities. Obviously, 26 is a difficult one, but for 27, I think Leclerc will have his pick of teams. I think if Fernando moves on, I think Aston Martin would take him. I think Mercedes, I think Toto, depending on what happens with Max, like there's a lot of possibilities. Audi might become competitive by 27. Who knows? That I don't believe that Audi are going to take long to they've got a goal of winning the championship by 2030. That's their goal. They're coming into Formula One in 26. 4 years they want to be at the top. Audi, that's commitment, and I think they could do it. And you can't write off Cadillac either. Cadillac are coming in, and they're going to be, they're not going to want to hang around and be at the back of the grid for long. Sergio Perez thinks that Cadillac can get a podium next year, and maybe. I'm going to get the chat. So D1, what are you saying? The left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing. Ferrari all over. Here's the problem. I think at Ferrari, the left hand does know what the right hand is doing, but the left hand says to the right hand, I don't think you're doing that well enough. And the right hand says to the left hand, you don't know what you're talking about. You're not doing it well enough. I'm going to do my own thing. And I think that's the problem. I think they all know what each other is doing. And I think there's a lot of disagreement in the team. There's no, like, when we look at what Adrian Newey's doing at Aston Martin, he's come in and he's audited the team and he's gone, right, this needs to change. We need to he's got rid of like at least 7 people out of the aerodynamics department. He's improving the way the teams, the internal departments communicate with each other. He's given them a clear direction. He sets the direction. This is what Andy Cowell said. The great thing about Newey coming into this team as an owner and as a leader is he sets the direction, he identifies the gap, and he makes the decisions. And this is the CEO, right? You know, this is Andy Cowell, team principal. But Newey sets the direction. It's definitely with the design of the car. He sets the direction for how the teams can work together. And the one really interesting thing, I don't know if you saw Adrian Newey's interview, where it's like a press piece for Aston Martin, and the really interesting thing was he said one of the most important parts of developing this car is the drivers. Their feedback is so important, and it's basically the exact opposite of what Ferrari are saying, right? Like the feedback of the drivers should be, shut up, don't tell me, you drive the car. That was Toto Wolff. You drive the car, don't give us the feedback. Whereas Adrian Newey, if he got a dossier of things from Fernando Alonso, he would welcome it because he wants to improve. Because here's the thing about ideas and beliefs, right? And that's why I love our fan channel here, because I can have an opinion or a belief in something, then you can tell me something in the chat, validate your opinion, and I might go, do you know what? That makes perfect sense. That's a better opinion than mine. This is now my new opinion. I've now acquiesced and gone, that's a better validation that I had for why I believed what I believed, and now I believe something new. And I think really within sport or within life, I think it's important to know that having a rigid belief is a silly place to be. You've always got to challenge your own belief with new information. And that's why I love what we do here, because it's all opinion. And if somebody's got a better opinion, they validate it. I'm like, do you know what? That's true. You can change my mind. Adrian Newey basically says the same thing. But Ferrari don't have that attitude. Ferrari go, this is Ferrari. This is it. This is my opinion, and I'm right, you're wrong. And I don't want to be told anything different. And that is fundamentally when I was just a long way of responding to old school to D1 saying Ferrari doesn't know what left hand and right hand's doing. And I think I think they're all aware, but nobody's but they don't agree. So they end up with this mess, and no one's leading. You know, I just know what no one's leading. And Triplet says, you can't do unlimited testing like you used to and can't spend 10 billion a year. Now you got to spend your time and money smart, and Ferrari isn't smart. They only have money, and that's that. And that's a very interesting and good point, Triplet. Because of the cost cap and because of the way the wins all the time and the fairness that's come into the sport, being super wealthy doesn't help too much, does it? Being super wealthy as a team helps you on your spending outside of the cost cap. So that includes your drivers and your 3 top paid members of staff. Only three outside of your team cost cap. And then obviously you have your engine cost cap as well. So there's no real, the benefit is, there is still a benefit from being like a really wealthy team, obviously, but really not as much, because what Ferrari would have done is kept throwing money at it. Enzo Ferrari literally bankrupted his car company. I saw someone mention this before. Like the difference with Ferrari from the old days is Enzo made road cars to fund his racing team. That's all he wanted. He made them because he had to. He didn't even want to do it. Enzo Ferrari was like, I've got to make these damn sports cars. because I want to go, because I have to in order to go racing. That was it. Now imagine that mentality. There's no one. They don't have that at Ferrari now, right? But they don't realize how important to the Tifosi and the fans. They're a heritage team. I think they do need to have a leader in there that has that same mentality, and they just haven't got it. And the way this Elkann out movement is going. See, here's the thing about that. Like I said, if you haven't watched all of the videos, you might find it interesting. Go down the rabbit hole, watch all the videos from this week where we've covered the whole story. The Elkann out thing is going to bug him. I'm telling you, people around him will know. Do you know everyone's saying Elkann out? He'll just say, well, I own the shares. I'm a billionaire. I'm not going anywhere. But it's the protest that should be enough, right? Because he's not going to sell his shares. He's not going to go anywhere. But the protest should make him think, I got this wrong. And he can turn it around. This is the thing that's so interesting about it. Like, Elkann could turn it around by going, you know what? I didn't... Just an explanation. On reflection, Charles Leclerc's done a sterling job this season. We've let the drivers down. We haven't delivered a car. We haven't been able to solve this, and this. Blah, 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 blah. He just needs to sort of acknowledge it and then come back with a positive statement of what they're going to do to fix it. And maybe if it is a change of leadership, maybe he wants a big announcement. Maybe he's still on the phone to Horner going, Horner, please come and do 2 years at Ferrari. I don't know. But yeah, so like I said, I don't want to spend any more time on it because we've covered it a lot this week. But the Ferrari clown show has continued all week. Gemma says Elkann will hang Fred out to dry. Possibly. Elkann, let's double down on this message. Try and deflect, redirect. Ferrari fans on Twitter X. Not so fast, dude. Elkann out. They need a strategist and consultant. Well, I would say Ferrari are already paying people to do it. So whoever made the decision to just think, we'll just launch. I mean, this is the other thing. When you launch merch, limited edition merch, well, who's going to buy it? You want your fans to buy it. They're the ones that are buying it. And you're doing it at a time that your fans really are very, very unhappy with you. So what a time to launch some limited edition merch and celebrate our pit crew. I mean, it's an insane situation at Ferrari. We are going to follow it. Anything else happens, obviously, we're going to follow the story all the way till the end. Do I think Elkann's going to release a statement, or Ferrari HQ will release a statement before press day, before Vegas? I don't know. But they also did some pictures after the story from earlier today where the guys, Hamilton, Leclerc, and the factory. I mean, is that supposed to say, hey, we're all friends again? I don't know. We'll see. We're going to follow it. We're going to follow it through. But anyway, that's us covering Ferrari. Anyway, I'll go to the chat. Did it? Triple X. He was working so he could enjoy his hobby. Who's that? Oh, yeah, Enzo. Yeah, sorry. Of course. That's Enzo. Yeah. I mean, what a mentality. We have to make these sports cars and sell them in order to fund the racing team. Well, I love Enzo Ferrari. I mean, I bet he was a nightmare to work with. I mean, I'm sure he was, but you can't fault his commitment to racing. Okay, right. I'm gonna put John Elkann to bed now. Let's talk about as well the next big story. I want to talk about Oscar Piastri. So, tell me in the chat if you saw or listened to Oscar's Beyond the Grid podcast. I actually thought that there was a lot of insights in that. I thought Oscar Piastri came across really well. And because the main question everybody wants to know, and everyone wants to know, is, Oscar, what's happened? Why has your performances dropped off since Baku, that nightmare weekend in Baku, and since then, why have you not been competitive in comparison to Lando Norris or even Max Verstappen? We know the car can do this. You've been there. What has been going on? And Oscar Piastri, well, he pointed to the race before Baku, which was very telling. He said, well, immediately before Baku was Monza. You know, it was a tough race. You know, then the pit stop incident. and all of that. Yeah, it was a lot to deal with. And what he was basically referring to was, of course, being ordered to switch positions with Lando Norris after Lando Norris pitted second, his choice. The tyre gun had a jam. He had a long pit stop, and he came out on track behind Oscar Piastri. Now, because there was an agreement that Oscar Piastri would not undercut Lando Norris if he pitted first, they made the on track decision to revert their positions. The only thing is, that was a hard thing for Oscar Piastri to take, because even on the radio, it was like, what? But that wasn't by design. That was a racing incident. Like, you didn't hold Lando Norris in the pits. And don't forget, Oscar Piastri is championship leader at this point. So that happened. And then going into Baku, he's on the he sort of talked about the fact that he was on the C6 tyres. Now, the C6 tyres have not been working that great for Oscar. And he said, so in Q3, he puts the car in the wall. Qualifies P9, I think. Not a great qualifying performance, obviously. But then at the start of the Grand Prix, he jumps the start, hits the anti-stall, ends up going from P9 to P18, crashes the car first lap. Just a nightmare. And this is after 44 straight Grand Prix without an incident. He was like the Iceman. From that point, everything started to change for him. And he's saying how it's been difficult to deal with. And on further reflection, he did not throw the McLaren team under the bus, and he didn't directly say McLaren are favouring Lando. But here's my takeaway from it. What I did take away was, okay, there's been two incidents where Oscar Piastri has been vocal about penalties he's received, which he felt were unfair. Silverstone, he got a penalty on the restart where he was holding everyone up, and he braked quite aggressively. He got a penalty for that before the restart. Now he's P1 at this point. Every driver does this, by the way. It happens all the time. Oscar Piastri got a penalty. Now, after the race, Andrea Stella, team principal at McLaren, said, it's a harsh penalty, that. Harsh penalty. We feel, we've seen it happen. We've seen George Russell do the same thing in earlier Grand Prix. We've seen it happen over and over again. We think that was a harsh penalty. But because of that penalty, Lando Norris wins the race. Oscar Piastri's P2. And then Andrea Stella, if he thinks it's harsh, so did you appeal the decision? No, we're just going to take it on the chin. So Oscar Piastri, who's been vocal, saying that was definitely, I should not have got a penalty. Yet, so he's fighting. So this is how I see it. If your driver's fighting on track, your team needs to fight for you off track just as hard. Andrea Stella decided to take it on the chin because, Lando Norris wins. He didn't fight for him. Sao Paulo, most recent Grand Prix. Again, a contentious penalty. The restart, Oscar Piastri goes for the gap. Kimi Antonelli, there is a gap. Kimi Antonelli closes the door. Oscar Piastri clips the back of Kimi Antonelli, puts him into a spin. Kimi Antonelli spins into Charles Leclerc. Puncture or blow, tyre blows out. His front left that blows out. DNF. Oscar Piastri gets a 10-second penalty. Now, this does split the room. There's a lot of people who think that he, by the letter of the law, he deserved the penalty. And there's a lot of people that says, well, actually, I don't think it was a penalty because you can't say that Kimi Antonelli wasn't part of that incident. So, yeah. And it was after a restart as well, which there should be some grace. And a 10-second penalty, as we know, because the racing is so close, is, forget about it, right? 10-second penalty is huge. Anyway, so Oscar didn't feel it was a 10-second penalty. They go to Andrea Stella after the race. And Andrea Stella says, well, it's a very, very harsh penalty for Oscar. We don't feel it was fully Oscar's fault. We think Kimi Antonelli was also at fault. There was a gap. He talks this good game. And then they say, so are you going to appeal the decision? No, we're just going to take it on the chin. So you're taking it on the chin on behalf of your driver. And here's the thing. Now, Oscar served that 10-second penalty in the pits, but it's not the point. If you're not like fighting for your driver, because don't forget, Oscar also got 2 super license penalty points as well. But Oscar just wants to be vindicated. He wants to know that he didn't do anything wrong, and he wants you to tell the world he didn't do anything wrong. And all I can relate it to is that if you've got a team principal like Christian Horner, the way he was with Max Verstappen, like even when Max was wrong, Christian Horner would fight for him every single time. And I think that's what you want from your leader, right? It's like your friends. Even when my friends are wrong, I'm going to fight for my friends. And afterwards, it's loyalty. Like, you're at war. This is your tribe. This is your team. And I think the reason why I'm talking about Sao Paulo is because Oscar Piastri mentally is not in the right place. Because when you start joining up these dots, you go, hang on a minute. I don't feel you're fighting for me here. I already have this seed of doubt that maybe there's a subconscious bias. He didn't say that. These are my words. I feel there's a subconscious bias at McLaren. I think that if everyone is honest, McLaren would prefer Lando Norris to be world champion. I think it's better for their brand. I think it'd sell more cars. I think there's probably other reasons behind that. But Zach Brown's doing his best to give an equal footing for both cars. He says he'd rather lose to Max Verstappen in the World Drivers' Championship than tell one of these drivers that, no, we're picking the world champion. And that's his statement. And I think he probably believes that's what they're doing. But then, if we're getting all a bit psychological about it, I think there's a subconscious bias that means that certain decisions don't go Oscar's way. So, as we talked about Monza, where the on-track decision was, well, we told Lando we're not going to do an undercut, and even though we didn't plan for that long pit stop, so we're going to reverse you. Right. Okay, that was the on-track decision. In Singapore, Piastri's P3, Norris is P5, first corner, lap 1. Norris is obviously trying to make moves and make his way up through the grid. To avoid Max Verstappen, he makes contact with Oscar Piastri. That contact for Piastri is obviously unexpected. That's his teammate. Now, the one team order that is set in stone with McLaren was, you two don't touch each other. You don't touch each other. Well, they touched. It was clear. There was contact, and Lando Norris took the position off Piastri. Piastri then says on the team radio, hey, there was contact. Are we going to switch these positions round? McLaren made the on-track decision to not switch them around. So at that point, Oscar Piastri driving the car going, hang on a minute. If we're true to our word, and before the race we've made these decisions, if they're what we class as unfair within our team, contact is classed as against team rules. There was contact. So just like at Monza, the team rule was we're not gonna allow Oscar to undercut you. So they make them change positions. Singapore, they didn't do that. And here's where that one gets really hard for Oscar. They didn't switch them round on track. And then, after the Grand Prix, Lando Norris, they then publicly say, yes, Lando Norris was wrong. And we internally will deal with it with sanctions. Well, hang on a minute. If now you're saying that was wrong, that doesn't really... What does Oscar Piastri about the internal sanctions? And you know what the internal sanctions are? They were that Oscar Piastri gets to choose in the next Q3 that they're both in. Oscar Piastri gets to choose when he comes out of the pits. Like, that sanctions, who cares about that? Like, why was there... What Oscar's thinking is, there was an opportunity to do what he thinks would be fair and switch those cars around and think, well, they didn't do it. Yet afterwards admitted that Lando was wrong for doing it and give sanctions. So all this plays into Oscar's mind, and whether you like it or not, this looks like subconscious bias towards Lando Norris. And then you've got a team principal who doesn't fight for you when you're telling the world, I think that penalty's wrong. Who's backing me up? Anyone backing me up on this? No, they don't. They just say, no, we're going to take it on the chin. That's what Andrea Stella would say. And I think that is where Oscar Piastri has been really betrayed by his team, because Oscar Piastri absolutely consistently has never thrown McLaren under the bus. Even when he's been felt injustices, even when he had to give that place back in Monza, He came out and was sticking up for the guy, the pit crew guy, who's gun jammed. He said, imagine how he's feeling, like protecting the team. And he said, it's very important that I protect our team because this team's important to help me win a world championship. And he's been team. And I just don't feel that McLaren, you can say the same thing about him. He's always come out to fight for McLaren. And I just think they've been let down. And I think within the Beyond the Beyond the Grid podcast, I think it came out, and I felt for him because he was basically saying, yeah, mentally it's been tough, and you can tell he's got this really cool exterior where he looks like he's got it all together. This is his 3rd season in Formula One. He had what was it, a 30 something point lead, and he's let it slip. Like, the kid's going through something, right? He's going through something, and I feel like the McLaren are just delighted that Lando Norris has hit this. And all credit to Lando Norris. He has hit an amazing bit of form. He has been driving flawlessly. So credit to him. But, you know, I really do feel that Oscar has been let down by his team. Yeah, it was exactly right, Triple X. It was a contact in the sprint race at Austin between Hülkenberg, Oscar and Lando, and this is where it gets even more interesting. So the Hülkenberg contact with Oscar and Lando, because Oscar was putting a move on Lando and the gap was there. Hülkenberg was going for the gap as well. So Oscar and Hülkenberg touch, both McLarens out of the sprint race, and Hülkenberg. Now, the steward said racing incident, no sanctions. Internally, by the way, McLaren, just like they did with Norris, and said that was Norris's fault for that contact in Singapore on Piastri. They said that was Piastri's fault. Internally, they said, yeah. So with Oscar's had sanctions because of the Circuit of the Americas sprint race. You know what the sanction was? Because they sanctioned Lando Norris by allowing Oscar to be able to choose at what point he goes out in Q3, in the next Q3. They took that away from him, and that was his sanction. They took that away from him. And obviously, because it only really comes into it if you're qualifying. Because if you're the fastest McLaren at that point, you get to choose anyway. So yeah, it was absolutely crazy. So I do feel that Oscar has been really let down. And I mean, I said, I actually, on the video, if you haven't seen it yet, I put McLaren betrayed Oscar. And that's what I felt at the time when I was watching. I just felt like he has been so, brilliant with his support for the team. I really did feel that it hasn't been reciprocated. And I think Oscar Piastri is a class act. And I really hope that for the last 3 Grand Prix, I think he's going to do all right in Vegas, actually. I think Oscar's going to do all right in Vegas. I hope he brings the fire. I do. I hope he brings the fire for the last 3 Grand Prix. I really, really do. I'm rooting for him. Make a competition between him and Lando. Because I think if we're honest, even Max Verstappen said it's the championship's over. But then you never know with Max. Miracles can happen for Max. It's just how it is. He's a miracle maker. Miracle Maker Max is what he should get on his t-shirt. Yeah, so Triplex says, what are they going to penalise there? All 3 were out practically. They probably don't even bother. I wouldn't be surprised if sprint penalties don't carry over to the race. Yeah, I mean, I tell you what about the sprint race. Did any of you catch the my Sainz Gets Spicy video where Carlos Sainz was talking about improvements for sprint race for next season? I actually thought he came up with a good idea. He came up with Super Pole in SQ3. So the 10 drivers that get through to SQ3 get 1 shot, 1 lap, hit or miss to decide the top 10 grid for the sprint races. I actually thought it was a good idea. And he also said all drivers must use the softest tyre as well for the sprint race so that the chance of tyres can go off. So a bit of tyre management can come into it. I actually like those ideas for the sprint race because I think the sprint races are not just here to stay. I think eventually I actually think eventually sprint races will be at every Grand Prix. The way Formula One's going, the spectacle and the show, I think in a few years' time, the sprint races will be at every single Grand Prix. It'll just be part of the Grand Prix race weekend. So yeah, I think that format's here to stay, and I think it's only going to get more interesting. But I did like Carlos Sainz's suggestions. I like the idea of only in the sprint qualifying and only in SQ3, top 10, hit it or miss it, 1 lap, sprint qualifying. I like it. Super pole. I do like that idea. I think it could work. Okay, so that's what's happened with Piastri this week. Now, Mr. Moneybags. By the way, get in the chat. Tell me what you think about what we're talking about. I will read your messages out. Will. Hey, Will. Will's with us. Join us at the end again, Will. Will's always towards the end of the stream. Will gets in. Triplex says, actually, just before I go on to what Toto Wolff's been up to, the sprint race needs its own tyres, in my opinion. Yeah, that's a good idea. Its own compound, which will... Because we want them to go off in the last... We want to make it difficult, don't we? Everyone's running the medium tyres. There's never going to be a problem. Yeah, we want the sprint tyres to be difficult to manage. We want them to be going off in the last few laps. So if you've got a super smooth driving style like Oscar Piastri, there'll be a lot of overtaking towards the end in the last few laps. Because that's the problem with sprint races, isn't it? It's the overtaking. We want more of it. Will says those super purple softs should return for sprints. I mean, whichever tyre they use, we just want them to go off before the end of the race. We just want to make it tricky. We want more. We need overtaking, basically. And just, and if you do push the tyres too hard, then yeah, the tyres will go off. But someone like Oscar Piastri, who we know is very, very good with tyre management, would do what I think could do well. So yeah, Toto Wolff, Mr. Moneybags. So Toto Wolff, yeah, as you know, Toto Wolff owns a third of Mercedes Racing, 33.333%. Ineos, Sir Jim Ratcliffe, his company owns a third, and Mercedes own the other third. Now, Toto Wolff, basically, all of his shares, his 33%, are in a company owned by Toto Wolff, a holding company. Now, what he's doing is he's selling 5% of his holding company to the CrowdStrike CEO, George Kurtz. I think that's what's been reported in the press, because George Kurtz he's an avid racer. He's already sponsor of the team, and he wants in. He wants to buy into Formula One because there's never been a better time to be in Formula One. And he's buying 5% for £300 million, because basically Mercedes Racing is currently valued at $6 billion or just under, which is a huge amount of money. $6 billion for Mercedes Racing, which actually, so it's a nice deal for Toto Wolff. I have no idea what he needs the money for. He's already super wealthy. I was wondering, get in the chat time, what do you think he's spending his 300 million on? Because it's a big chunk of change, because why is he selling it? Why is he selling the shares? I mean, the funny thing is, I think that's probably, that 300 million he's taken out was probably about what his original investment was. About 300 million. So, he's made good money. He's made good money, hasn't he? Because that would effectively mean he's gone from a 300 million investment to 2 billion. Not bad business, Toto, but how many world championships has he won? What, 7? Well, is it 7? 6? It's a lot. Anyway. Yeah, so anyway, there you go. He sold his shares. The deal's going through. An extra 300 million in Toto Wolff's pocket. Is he gonna buy DT? Brilliant. DT Destroy Television says he's gonna buy a stake in F1 Grandstand, obviously. Could you imagine? Here's what I'd really like. I'd like F1 Grandstand to get that big that we can buy a stake in a Formula One team, so everyone can come to the Grand Prix. How good would that be? I think we'd need... How many subscribers do you think we'd need to have enough money to buy a stake in? We'd have to be like Mr. Beast, wouldn't we? We need about 400 million subscribers to make enough money to buy a stake in a Formula One team, the way the valuations are going. And speaking of, yeah, at least 100 million. Yeah. And speaking of buying a stake in Formula One teams, I forgot. We need to talk about the Christian Horner update as well. So bye Toto. That's enough from you for now. But yeah, he's just got more. He's just money bags. But it was one of the big stories this week. And we want to talk about Horner. Christian Horner, everybody's favourite protagonist, coming back to the grid. If you want to get a full in-depth story about Christian Horner, look at my video. It's called Horner's 1.5 billion pound F1 team. I did a full deep video on it, but there's been this is an update. So John Jackson, who's an F1 journalist, was hanging out at the Sao Paulo Grand Prix. And he was picking up a lot of whispers suggesting that Alpine are ready to do the deal with Christian Horner as team principal for 27. Now, Jackson was speaking to TalkSport's YouTube channel about Horner's future, and he said, the big whisper in the paddock this weekend in Sao Paulo in Brazil is that Christian Horner is going to be taking over as team principal at Alpine in some kind of potential. Probably buyout. Because Alpine's team is pretty much up for sale. It's either the independent shareholder who's got like 25% selling his shares, or it's Renault selling their shares. So it was Kyle actually. Kyle, one of our OGs in the chat, was on ChatGPT, and he said that ChatGPT are currently at a 90% probability that Horner is gonna take over Alpine for 2026. Now, there's been a mixed response to this. Not that people don't think it's going to happen, but people think that it's going to be a bigger job for Horner than anticipated, because he's got a couple of problems. The first issue is Alpine, their engine supplier is Mercedes. That's the first thing. And I'm going to get a bit conspiracy theory now. So when Williams took Alexander Albon as a driver from Red Bull, Toto Wolff was basically saying at the time that Alexander Albon was a mole, a Red Bull mole, going to Williams, giving data about the Mercedes engines back to Red Bull. That was Toto Wolff's opinion. And there was also this rumour that all of a sudden the engines that Mercedes were giving to Williams may not have been all the best bits in those engines. Like, they're basically saying that he could be that, pedantic, but he really could be that petty, that he felt that when Alexander Albon went to Williams that there was some sort of conspiracy at Red Bull, so then Mercedes were going to gave the worst engines of the Mercedes engines to Williams. Now, I'm not saying that I can corroborate that as fact. I just know that that's what they were saying in the paddock. Now, if Horner does buy Alpine, part or full, that relationship's already in place. That deal's already in place. Would Toto Wolff mess around with the engines that end up in that Alpine? I mean, could you imagine if it's like, oh yeah, the engines that go to Alpine, it's the worst bits inside that engine. Like, you're really not getting a good engine. It's a sort of like tomfoolery that could happen. The D1 says yes, Toto Wolff could do that and probably would do that to mess with Horner, which is a problem. It's a problem. It's less of a problem for if Horner sort of takes over that team lock, stock and barrel, well then it's a Horner problem. But if he buys into the team at 25%, and Renault still keep 75% of the shares. They want that team to do well. Are they going to have this concerning? Oh God, if we let Horner in to run this team, this deal, this problem that we've just managed to solve with an engine supplier for 26, because Renault can't now produce engines. They've shut their engine department down. Renault are in trouble. Their share price is down. They are struggling. The whole Renault entire company is in trouble. I think they've solved it. We can still be competitive. We've got this engine supply from Mercedes, but Horner's going to mess that up for us, and it's going to, all of this development we've done on the car for 26, these new regulation changes, and yeah, I mean, could Toto just throw a spanner in the works if Horner takes that team? And that's what people are talking about. Cal says, hopefully Horner brings in technical partner and drop the Alpine brand. I'd love to see Lamborghini, Bugatti or Porsche. Oh, do you know, can anyone tell me in what year Porsche supplied engines to McLaren? Answers on a postcard. Yeah, Porsche used to supply McLaren with engines back in the 80s. In fact, I know they definitely supplied engines to McLaren in Alain Prost's 1984 McLaren, because the Monaco Grand Prix, when Senna sort of burst onto the scene in a Tollman where he was taking 4 seconds a lap. Yeah, it was before 2000. It was 1980s. Triple X, 1980s. So 1984, McLaren had a Porsche engine, and Tollman were running, I think it was a Ford engine. Anyway, Senna in the car. Tollman never won anything, and in the wet Monaco Grand Prix, he was taking 4 seconds a lap out of Prost, and there was all of this absolute car. Like one of the most diabolical things to ever happen in Formula One, where Ballesteri stopped or ordered Jackie Ickx to stop the Monaco Grand Prix in order to Alain Prost to maintain the winning position, while Senna was gonna win in the Tollman, but he got given second. They stopped it on lap 31 because it's too dangerous. Well, it wasn't too dangerous for Senna. It was taking 4 seconds a lap out of Prost. Anyway, there might be a video coming up on that very, very soon. But the point is, yes, back in those days, and I definitely know they were in the car in 1984. So it was 84 to 87, was it, Kyle? Right. Okay. So I was right. 1984, Alain Prost was driving a McLaren with a Porsche engine. So going back to the original point about Horner's team, if he takes over Alpine, yeah, I mean, wouldn't it be great for Porsche to come back to the grid? I mean, God, they're doing loads of hybrid stuff at the moment within their group. Obviously, it's Group VW. You got Porsche, Audi obviously coming to the grid, and they're all part of the same group. We know that. Lamborghini, Porsche, Audi. But doesn't mean you can't have the brands back, and it doesn't mean that, you know, they can't work independently. And yeah, I'm here for it. I would love to see Porsche in Formula One. Oh, I would. I mean, even as a works team. I think Toyota's probably going to be the next big works team. With the relationship with Haas, I think Haas will eventually become Haas Toyota, and it'll become like a Toyota works team. Haas will still keep his name on it, or he might even then eventually sell it lock, stock and barrel to Toyota, which is why I don't think Horner's going to get his hands on Haas. Because Io Komatsu, the team principal at Haas, has got great relationships with Toyota, and he's slowly bringing them in to Haas, doing more and more. So yeah, I think that would be interesting if I think that'll be the next big manufacturer. And also, you know, there's one slot left on the grid. I personally would love to see Lotus back on the grid. Like the heritage of Lotus. I know they're a Chinese-owned brand now, but there's just the heritage of Lotus in Formula One. Colin Chapman, Mario Andretti winning a world championship in the Lotus, Ayrton Senna winning races, Estoril, Portuguese Grand Prix. You know, the black and gold of Lotus. And my entire colour scheme is based on the Lotus 97T. John Player special car. It was the greatest livery known to man, in my opinion. So yeah, we should. I would love to see Lotus back on the grid. Like, if I was Horner and if I didn't buy Alpine, I was doing Horner Racing, I would want to partner up with Lotus. I would. I would. I'd go for it. So yeah. So that's the other big story. Christian Horner. The odds of him taking over Alpine have gone up. Oh, here we go. So Kyle said the Chinese are rumored to be the 12th team. Lord knows how they have the money, and they do. BYD or Lotus, maybe. It's got. I want Lotus. Listen, I'm all for like the other teams from different nationalities, different countries coming onto the grid. It's good for the sport, right? Having a Chinese team, Lotus would be brilliant. They could do a lot worse, by the way, than buddying up with Christian Horner. A Lotus brand back on the grid. I'm here for it. I think there's quite a few people that want that final FIA license that's left. That last Formula One grid spot. I think there's a few people that would like it. But at $500 million for a license, it's weirdly, looking at these new valuations of these teams, if Mercedes is valued at $6 billion, that license is looking pretty reasonable and pretty valuable. Because if you do what Haas do and build your team, Haas are valued at under $1 billion. They're the cheapest team on the grid. And they're built out of the Ferrari parts bin. So, but that team is the value. If you wanted to sell it, you'd have to pay him a lot of money to get him off the grid. Because he's been all frugal, old Gene Haas. And yet, you know what? When we look at what Ollie Behrman's doing, it's phenomenal, isn't it? His uptick in performance has been outstanding. But did you see Fernando Alonso trying to cast shade on these teams like Haas, even Alpine, with the uptick in performance? Fernando Alonso is basically more conspiracy, but he could be right. He's saying teams like Haas, Alpine, Sauber are all running the cars at a legal ride height, okay? Because not every car gets their plank wear checked. Podium cars get checked, and then 2 random cars. But there's 20 cars on the grid. So if you're Sauber or Haas going, well, we're gonna finish P12 no points, or we can gamble on running the car at a ride height that may not be legal at the end of the Grand Prix, but we might not get it. We might not get checked. It might not get checked. Fernando Alonso thinks that teams are taking that gamble because if they don't get checked, they win points. If they do get checked and they get disqualified, no points. If they don't lower the ride height, well, they're not going to get any points anyway. So Fernando Alonso is convinced that these teams like Haas, Sauber and Alpine, I don't know why Alpine are bothering. They may as well, maybe it's just for shits and giggles because they want to try and be competitive towards the end of the season, but definitely Sauber and Haas, their uptick in performance. Fernando Alonso firmly points the finger at them altering their ride height to an illegal ride height. Because this is the big issue with this entire era of cars, the ground effect era of cars. Like, because ride height has been the most important factor by lowering the car by a millimeter, the lower to the ground, the better the ground effect is. It's meant that the suspension is basically rigid. Like, the drivers have all said the same thing. It's like, because you're basically driving these rigid cars. Now, the 26 car, because we're moving away from the ground effect era and we're going back to more mechanical grip. Drip, you're a bit late, mate. How late are you? right at the end of F1 Friday Night Live, and you get in the chat. I'm glad you're here, mate, but make sure you have a rewind. Make sure you have a rewind and you catch up. But yeah, the new era of cars, it's not gonna be quite as intense for this. from a ride height point of view, because the aero is not going to be quite as sort of important. You know, the power unit's going to be important, suspension's going to be important, the active aero is going to be important. I mean, aero is still going to be important, chassis design is still going to be important, but mechanical grip is going to be more the thing. But I've completely lost myself. Drip's thrown me from coming in late. But yeah, so that's basically what I was going to say anyway. So Drip says, what advice are you giving to Audi? Well, actually, I think it's what advice Audi should be giving to Red Bull, because Audi seem to have a very, very strong power unit. Audi think they're going to be winning, you know, going to be competing for the championship by 2030, which is quite remarkable. I think Audi have got all the ducks in a row. I do. I think Audi are coming in with their eyes wide open. I think they've been working on the 26 car well. I think their power unit's in good shape. It's been on the dyno and the bench for over 6 months. Everything, according to Wheatley, is running absolutely smoothly. It's looking good. I think Nico Hülkenberg's the right driver to help them develop the team next season. Gabriele Bortoletto is a bit more of a question mark, but he is a good rookie. He can be quick over a lap. We know he can win championships. He won F3, first time of asking. He won F2, first time of asking. So I actually think Audi for 26 know what they're doing. I actually think Audi are going to be better than you think. I don't think they're going to be awful. Oh, Kyle, great. You did some digging. Kyle says between 1984 and 1987, Porsche supplied tag-branded V6 turbo engines to McLaren. So I was right with 84. I didn't realize they did it all the way through to 87. But yeah. Come back to the grid, Porsche. Come back to the grid. We miss you. We'd love to have you on there. So yeah, that's my advice to Audi is exactly what Kyle says. Yeah. Go fast. Look after your team. I think Wheatley is quietly confident. I think they've brought in some good people. I think Bonotto, great guy to bring into that team. Zimmerman, Schmidt, they're bringing good people in. I think that car's going to do far better than you might think. So yeah, it's been a crazy old week in the world of Formula One. Don't forget, smash a like on the video if you haven't already. It makes a big difference to the success of the channel. Subscribe if you haven't yet. Hit the notification bell so you can stay up to date with all breaking news. Hype the video if you feel like it. And I do want to say a massive thank you to each and every one of you for watching the stream, supporting the streams, doing your super chats. Kyle, DT, all of you. Like, just unbelievable amount of support this week. We've had a big step up in subscribers. It's just, honestly, I'm so grateful. As long as you're watching, I'll keep making content and we'll keep growing this community. I'm so grateful to all of you. Yeah, have a great night. It's Friday night. Go and enjoy your evening. Have some nice food, glass of wine. Wrap up warm if you're in the UK. The storm is brewing, just like the storm that's brewing at Ferrari with Elkann out. It is a crazy time to be at Ferrari. But that's it. Bye for now. And I will see you all on the next one. Ta-ta.